to the Law Abiding Citizen podcast. It's your friendly neighborhood lawyer, your host, Thulani Mututa, the law orator, and today I am joined on this episode by Miss Charlene Jackson, an exquisite and exceptional lawyer who deals with estates in Zimbabwe. Charlene, welcome to the LAC podcast.
Thank you for having me, Thulani.
We are glad that you took time out of your busy schedule to join us and just explain these issues that have to do with estates and how they are administered in Zimbabwe. So, Ms. Charlene, just before we get into the show, may you briefly introduce your background to our viewers and listeners and explain how exactly as a lawyer you go about your business, where you work, and also just the day-to-day, so that our viewers get to understand that lawyers, just like the common people, also go through ordinary days. Can you explain that?
All right. My name is Charlene Jackson, and I'm an associate at Gambe Law Group here in Harare. Yes. I studied my law at Rhodes University in South Africa.
Yes. And how was the experience at Rhodes University in South Africa, being a foreign country, and how they are developed as well? How was it for you?
It was great for me. It was great to be out of Zimbabwe, but also to get experience in another country and just get to mix and mingle with different nationalities.
Yes, and different cultures as well.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking about estates, which is something that is quite common in Zimbabwe, as most people interact at some point in time with estates. So what exactly inspired you as a legal practitioner to deal with estates, or what exactly led you as well to be involved in the administration of estates?
My experience from before I started law school was to see a neighbor of ours struggling with, maintaining her husband's estate and fighting against his family because they wanted what the husband had left, but she didn't understand her rights as the surviving spouse. So from then on, I wanted to be the voice of the voiceless and to be able to help those that don't know their rights.
Okay, wonderful. We are glad to have you. You have it there, listeners, the voice of the voiceless, and we appreciate that you also appreciate that sentiment that the law is actually supposed to be used for achieving good in the society, for achieving justice to the public. So let's get into it, Charlene. What is an estate? How exactly does it come about? Before we discuss the crucial role of someone who is called an executor and how exactly they assist in this whole estate process.
So essentially, an estate refers to the net worth of a person, dead or alive.
Yes.
It refers to their properties, assets, liabilities, and expenses.
Yes.
So it also includes immovable properties, share certificates, or any movable properties that a person might have or have left behind.
All right, and I understand that an estate is only opened after someone deceases or after someone dies. Can you just explain for our viewers and listeners how exactly that occurs and how exactly you approach it to the extent of getting an estate registered?
The first step is once somebody has passed on, you
Yes.
go and you register with the Master of the High Court, the estate, and they'll give you a DR number.
All right.
That's what a DR number is.
Okay, DR meaning death record.
Yes.
Okay.
So you then have that, and they'll then call meetings later on with the families to just establish what's been left in the estate and whether there's been a will or not.
All right.
So that they determine who then gets to run the estate.
Okay, and when there is a will, I understand that it's a simpler process as the will exactly or the intentions of the deceased person will be followed to the letter.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Viewers and listeners, I hope you're following and you're understanding. Miss Charlene, I want to talk about the role of an executor. What exactly is an executor? How are they important and why are they so crucial to the administration of a deceased estate?
So an executor, firstly, or you can have an executor or executrix data, especially in terms of deceased estates.
All right.
They're the person that's responsible for the management of an estate.
Okay.
Right. So they are appointed by the Master of the High Court as a trusted person who will be able to manage and to run the affairs of the estate in the absence of the deceased.
Okay, so does this person have to be related to the deceased person, or it's only anyone that the master can pick at their discretion? How is the selection criteria arrived at?
Well, there's different aspects to it.
Okay.
For example, in terms of a will, where there's, the deceased died testate, where there was a will. In terms of section 24, that executor that was stated in the will would then have to write in an application to the Master of the High Court
Okay.
to be given letters of administration.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Viewers and listeners, there you have it. So, does the executor have any duties or obligations in terms of administering the estate of the deceased? Can they do as they please with that immovable and movable property that you're talking about?
The good thing is, no, they can't do what they please.
Okay.
They do what the deceased would have wanted,
Okay.
what the family would see as fit to
Okay.
be done, and what the law requires to be done.
All right.
So, for example, the Master of the High Court will require an inventory
Okay.
of what was in the deceased estate.
Yes.
So you will be given inventory forms where you fill in everything that's in there, maybe property, movable properties,
Yes.
cash as
Yes.
well, bank
Okay.
accounts.
Okay.
Yeah. So that will all be needed by the Master of the High Court so that they know exactly what they're dealing with and how to value the estate itself.
Wonderful. I see you being an expert there, Charlene. We are glad to have you on the show once again, as I said. Viewers and listeners, we're going to take a short break and come back and discuss the role of the Master of the High Court as the administrator of estates, and we will discuss the forums that are available for you in recourse after the Master has handled your estate in a way that you may not feel pleased with, or just as an administrative relief that is available for each and everyone in terms of the law. So stay tuned to the Law Abiding Citizen podcast. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to the Law Abiding Citizen podcast. Today I am joined on the show by an exceptional legal practitioner, Miss Charlene Jackson, and we're talking about the administration of estates in Zimbabwe. So now we're going to look at the Master of the High Court and the role of the Master of the High Court in the administration of estates. So Miss Charlene, the Master of the High Court, we have been mentioning this ever since we began the show. What exactly is the role of the Master of the High Court when it comes to these estates?
The Master of the High Court essentially oversees the management of an estate.
Okay.
So they are an overhead over the executor to ensure that the executor is running according to the law.
Okay.
And in terms of what, maybe where there's a will, if the will is exactly being followed.
Okay, so in essence, they ensure some checks and balances with regards to how an estate is being administered.
Definitely.
And their role is not only tied to oversight, but they is tied to also making sure that everything is done in terms of the law.
Yes.
So in the event that the Master of the High Court finds out that something has not been done in terms of the law, what recourse does the Master have to enforce the law in that regard?
The first step that the Master may take is to approach the High Court.
Okay.
And they make a chamber application to
Okay.
a judge to have an executor removed.
Okay.
This usually happens in the instance where the Master of the High Court is of the view that the executor is no longer capable of running the estate, or
okay.
is mismanaging the estate.
Okay.
And that usually arises after complaints
Okay,
by
okay.
the beneficiaries.
All right, okay. So after these complaints come, the Master then takes up the matter to the High Court. What about in the reverse instance, Ms. Charlene, whereby someone is aggrieved by the decisions of the Master? Can a third party then approach the High Court in terms of that chamber application to get direction, or either to remove an executor, as you're saying, or it's only a remedy that's available for the Master?
It's only a remedy that's available for the Master.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Because the Master would then be able to make that chamber application.
Okay, okay. And in your experience, when you've seen how people are dealing with these estates, what would you say is the most important thing for people to understand? I would feel that there may be a bit of a legal deficiency in just knowledge. People are not aware how this process is supposed to go. Sometimes they are led astray where they get advice. What would be the most important thing to you with regards to that?
The first port of call, I'd say, especially if somebody's been appointed as an executor,
Okay.
seek legal representation.
Okay.
That person will be able to assist you in how to be able to conduct your duties
Okay.
lawfully.
All right.
Yes, and there's some processes that a layman would not be able to understand.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So, for example, how to fill out the forms,
Yes.
inventory forms, what not to include and what to include. That's
Okay.
also necessary. And in terms of seeking advice from the banks
All right.
and accountants of the deceased to find out if there are any creditors that are owed and
Okay.
the adverse that are included in the process as well to creditors.
Okay, wonderful. I see you being an expert again. There you have it, viewers and listeners. You have recourse, you have rights when it comes to your estates, and you can enforce these. What I would just like to find out before we wrap up the show, Charlene, is, what about in the instances whereby a person is aggrieved by the decision of the master in the administration of an estate? What recourse is available then for that person?
In the event that it's a final decision by the
Yes.
master, because the master of the High Court is an administrative body,
Okay.
they then take it up on review to the
Okay.
High Court.
Okay.
Yes. So in that instance, maybe you've also brought an estate to the master of the High Court, and the sharing of the properties has not been beneficial to
Yes.
the beneficiaries.
Yes.
You can take it up on review.
Okay.
Yes, to query what the decision of the master is, because at the end of the day, that is not the final court of all.
Okay.
The decision will still need to be confirmed or reversed by the High Court.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, wonderful. Viewers and listeners, I hope you have understood how the estates in Zimbabwe are working. Miss Charlene, thank you very much for demystifying some of these myths that people have. Just before we round up the show, do you have any parting shot that you want to give to our viewers and listeners just before we round up?
One thing I always say, especially to my clients,
Yes.
whatever you do, please have a will.
Yes.
Have a will, because that will make the process much easier,
Yes.
not only on your beneficiaries, but on
Yes.
the law as well, the people that are supposed to help you,
Okay.
and to see the management of your estate
Yes.
as properly done.
Okay, thank you very much. Take note of that parting shot. Make sure you have a will, for you may not know what may happen tomorrow. Once again, viewers and listeners, my name is Thulani Mututa, your friendly neighborhood lawyer, the law orator. You are watching the Law Abiding Citizen podcast, and today we were talking about estates in Zimbabwe with Miss Charlene Jackson. So thank you very much for tuning in to the Law Abiding Citizen podcast. Stay legal wise and stay law abiding, and also make sure to stay tuned to the Law Abiding Citizen podcast channel and follow us for more exciting legal initiatives. Thank you very much. That's a wrap.